Last time on Smallville, right here on Comicstorian. We started at the very beginning of Season 11, discovering the new status quo and the fact that Lex didn't remember anything he had learned about Clark during Seasons 1 through 10. Volume 2 introduced Batman and Nightwing. Volume 3 showed us the fate of Bart Allen and the Flash of this universe. Volume 4 sent Clark Kent into the future where he learned what happened to Supergirl. And at the beginning of Volume 5, we learned of this world's Wonder Woman and that Steve Trevor now works for the DEO. With various things happening on a mythological scale, Wonder Woman has entered into the limelight of this universe. And at the last second, we learned that Steve Trevor kind of dated Lois Lane a while ago. This channel is the Comicstorian channel, and we've been covering the Season 11 books of Smallville to let you know what happened to your favorite superheroes. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this, and if you're wondering what it is, it's an audio drama. We take your favorite pop culture universe and tell you the storylines within. But today we're going to bring you the second part of Smallville, Volume 5. The Harpies that were attacking Wonder Woman, Lois Lane, Steve Trevor, and Superman have returned to their base, transforming back into their human forms as their leader, Lord Faust, waits for his report. "I trust that you have not failed me," he asks as they report that they were able to wound the Superwoman. "Oh, she is anything but," Faust tells them, taking the hand that sliced Diana, cutting it off. "Even now, I can feel the godhood surging through that blood." He stands over a bubbling cauldron, raising his hand. "With this blood, I will come one step closer to fulfilling the promise made to my master, and the world of man will be plunged into a darkness it truly deserves." The next morning, the church has been turned into a crime scene, with the police holding back the gawking civilians, while General Lane and Director Bones step inside. "This is not good, Director Bones. What gave that away, General Lane?" "Eyewitnesses claim to have seen a woman matching the description of my daughter and a woman in white riding, flying lion people across the skyline," General Lane tells Bones. Stopping in the middle of the scene, Bones nods, taking another puff of his cigarette. "The world has truly rounded a corner, hasn't it?" He tells him, no humor in his voice. The two continue to argue, with the General telling Bones that Superman seemed to have everything under control until Team 7 showed up. So Bones grabs the nearest member of the team. "Where is your team leader?" But the soldier doesn't know. Steve and Lois continue their walk around the reflecting pool, drinking coffee and catching up on life since they both knew each other as kids at an army base. Quickly, though, the conversation turns to the Wonder Woman from last night. "She recognized my father. Why would she be looking into the military?" Lois asked. Steve pauses, thinking it over. "For all we know, she could have been stalking Director Bones." 10 years ago, Diana pulls one of the final ropes on her glider tight. "Just what is it that you believe that you will accomplish with all of this?" Artemis calls out to her. The warrior plops down on the hillside next to the princess as Diana continues to work, explaining that she cannot continue to wait for her mother's return. "Sister, you are next in line to become queen once you come of age. If you were to leave, who would succeed you?" Artemis asks. Diana stands there, straightening her stiff back. "Perhaps a vote should be called?" she explains. Artemis stands, drawing an arrow from her quiver. The oracles told her that Diana would act this way. "One supposes that you've been sent to stop me?" Diana asks her. Before Artemis can attack, though, Diana takes a staff in her hands, and with one quick leap, she is flipping over the warrior's head, bringing the simple stick down hard. She lands, driving her leg up and kicking Artemis hard in the stomach, dropping her to the ground. "Is this about finding your mother, or about finding the boy?" Artemis asks, struggling for air from the ground. "Honestly, I don't know," Diana growls her answer. Moving quickly, she rolls away from the fight to grab her glider, and with a quick run, she jumps off, flying away from the hills of Themyscira. In the present day, two children are fighting over a toy in the Marston home for wayward girls. Their mothers pull them apart, but this quickly becomes a fight between them as well. A fight that quickly comes to slaps and blows. "Sisters," Diana calls from the doorway. "There is a time and place for constructive violence. This is neither," she tells them. But the two mothers simply turn on her, startling insults. So Diana crosses the room, looking at the children who watch on. "Children, look away for a moment." With ease, she lifts up the two young mothers into the air. "Do I have your compliance now?" she asks, and both women nod quickly. "Ahem," Clark coughs, an interruption from the doorway. "Might I have a moment of your time, miss?" Diana looks over her shoulder, dropping the women to the floor. "You will have to forgive me. I do not find it best to socialize with strange men." she tells him, so Clark nods, removing his glasses and looking back at her once again. For a brief moment, she pauses. But then she recognizes him. That is remarkable, she smiles. Moments later, the two are walking down the streets of Washington, D.C., with Diana explaining that since she came to this country, she's been helping those who cannot help themselves. She pauses as she overhears a message from the watchtower coming through the comms. Nice. Super hearing, Clark remarks. I suppose that this makes more sense than hearing it from the gods, she remarks. So the two quickly change, with the watchtower reports leading them to a deserted tomb. The darkest of magics has perpetrated here, Diana intones as Superman begins to search the scene. She searches the walls, realizing that the tablets tell the story of her people. She realizes that these are a message. My mother is alive. Later that evening, Director Bones sits in the darkness of his office, smoking a cigarette. Director Bones, it's time for your weekly application, an agent informs him as he enters the office. The lights click on, revealing the suit-wearing skeleton sitting behind the desk. Appearances are everything, aren't they? Bones smiles, and as the agent goes through his protocols, he also lets Director Bones know that the fingerprint match was made through the database, and it set off one of his personal alerts. Who? The director demands to know, his bony hand slamming on the desk and rattling. At Martha Kent's home, Clark and Lois are quickly combing through the database that Batman's forensics tools have given them access to. They discover that the prints that Clark discovered at the Freemason tomb, they belong to a man named Felix Faust. These prints were entered into the system from records collected in the 40s, Clark tells her, leaning back in his chair. Unfortunately, they've been blocked out of the rest of the file. Martha smiles, stepping forward, cracking her knuckles. She leans forward, putting in a password that she had from her time as the Red Queen. And with a ping, they're given access to the file, revealing that Faust was a part of a group known as the Shadow Pact, and they existed in World War II. They all stop staring at the photo. That's Director Bones, Martha gasps. Clark points to another member of the group, John Zatara. Clark leans back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. I hate magic. Martha believes that Diana is probably following either Bones or Faust when she was attacked. But which one? She asks, and Clark nods. Why don't we ask? He says, and then he's gone in a red and blue blur. Meanwhile, over at the Capitol building, Faust looks up at the painting above him, with the sounds of echoing footsteps entering the room behind him. You handled the effects of the artifact that we found in that bunker much better than I did, Bones comments. If by better you mean that my skin and muscles don't need to be painted on to be visible, then yes, I worked the kinks out, Faust notes as he turns around. The two shake hands, with Bones getting straight to the point, demanding to know what Felix is after. I'll need that woman, the super, brought into custody, he tells him. But Bones shakes his head. Public support for the supers is too high. They can't risk bringing them in. The only thing that she's done is protect me from you. Hardly a crime. Faust moves his hand, and in a flash of magical energies, his staff is suddenly floating before him. He turns, threatening Bones with what he can conjure, but the director seems less than impressed. Our Team 7 can deal with whatever you can cook up. Energy surges across the room, connecting with Bones. Not once I finished what we've started all those years ago, Faust tells him, and Bones falls to the floor, the fake skin that they painted on blasting away. He struggles to crawl away from this. I'll do anything, he gasps, and with a pop, Faust disappears, yet his voice still echoes through the room. Take the woman into custody, or I'll make sure that that Team 7 of yours locks you up in the black room with the rest of your oddities. Meanwhile, in his apartment, Steve Trevor whistles while showering. In the shadows, though, Diana moves silently through the rooms. She pauses, whispering in wonder as she sees the old football that she made all those years ago. By the gods, she gasps, taking the ragged ball and holding it. I can't believe that he kept this. I got a gun, too, Steve tells her from the doorway, aiming down the sights as he stands there in a towel. If you're interested. Diana moves quickly, disarming him and knocking him to the floor. You dare aim a weapon at me? You're a burglar, he cries, surprise in his voice as he's thrown. The towel falls and the two stand there, awkwardly. Luckily, Steve is able to cover himself with the football. You've certainly grown, Diana says, before turning away in embarrassment. Steve quickly throws on some pants, confused since they've never been introduced. You were once when you were my secret boy, Diana tells him. Surprise and realization fill his eyes, and he rushes across the room, embracing her. When did you get super? He asks, and Diana explains that her powers grew with time. Their conversation is cut short, though, as Diana sees a picture of her mother with Steve, and she demands to know if Steve is the reason that her mother never returned. I don't know, Diana. I haven't seen her in years, I swear, Steve explains, when suddenly a spotlight blasts them through the window. Steve Trevor, Bones calls over the loudspeaker. Take the super into custody and escort her outside. She is under arrest. But across the city, Superman sees the smoke and he flies towards the commotion, radioing to Lois their location. Back on the scene, Diana swings her chain as the smoke clears from the tank's last shot. Your craftsmanship is remarkable, she comments as she begins to run forward. And while this is all in good sport, all beasts must be slain. She begins to swing her chain faster, and the soldiers inside scream over the radio, asking for permission to fire again. So the cannon erupts and a ball of flames begin to engulf Diana. She leaps through the smoke, wrapping her chain around the barrel, sliding beneath the mighty war machine. There is no shame in what is about to transpire, tank men, she calls to them. And on the other side, she yanks hard on the chain, flipping the tank forward. The barrel fires again and the tank explodes, with the men only being saved by the sheer speed of Superman. Steve Trevor steps outside, calling for Director Bones to stand down, his Glock still in his hand. The soldiers turn, see a weapon, and they open fire. Steve tries to move, but he isn't fast enough, but Diana is there, deflecting the bullets with her bracelets. Bones begins to scream at his soldiers, demanding that Steve Trevor bring in the super. If you don't, I have clearance to disavow you. At which point I can no longer protect you, he calls out. But Diana still protects her secret boy. Rest assured, Steve Trevor, no harm shall come to you, this night or any other. I thought you were mad. That does not mean that I do not care. Steve steps forward, telling the director to stand down, that Diana hasn't done anything wrong. And then on the rooftop, a sniper gets word to take out Steve Trevor. He fires. Diana isn't fast enough, and the bullet splits the air, sailing towards Steve's head, when suddenly, Superman is there, plucking the bullet out of the air. General Lane, I hope you evacuated the area before you brought a tank in, he asks, snapping the bullet in half in his hands. The general steps forward, assuring Superman that they did, and he tells the Man of Steel that everything that they are doing comes directly from the president himself. Diana hasn't done anything wrong. She's only here to find her mother, Superman explains, and Director Bones steps forward. Walk yourself in and I'll take you right to her. Diana grits her teeth, her anger making her words come out as a snarl. For this price, I shall comply. With her head down, Diana is led away in handcuffs. Damn it, General, Superman argues. But Lane merely walks away. Pick your battle, Superman. I'm sure you'll find another way to handle this. And as the military begin to leave the scene, Superman turns to Steve Trevor. You've just been burnt, Mr. Trevor. Now would be a good time to run, he tells him, letting him know that Lois is waiting in the alley. And in his dark cavern, Faust is informed that Diana has been taken captive. He smiles, knowing that his spell needs to be made stronger to free his master, and he slices open his palm, dripping the blood onto the floor, and soon, the one who imprisoned his master shall be the one who sets him free. And that brings us to the middle part of Volume 5. Now, if you have just now joined us for the first time, check out the playlist down below. We've got all of the Smallville Season 11 books leading up to this moment already covered here on the channel, and we hope you guys are looking forward to that. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications by hitting that bell so you know when the next videos are actually coming out. You can also hit me up on Twitter where you can say, Benny, don't stop doing Smallville. I mean, honestly, I really like it when you guys follow me on Twitter and tell me that. Makes me excited that you are enjoying something that we're doing here. And when I see you enjoying it, I want to do more of it. So thank you for all your support and just hitting me up and letting me know that you are enjoying it. I really do appreciate all of it. I try to read as many comments as I can. You guys are awesome. This entire thing exists because of you. Thank you. And I'll see you next time right here.